informative day, listening to the back and forth conversations through questions of senators, but we're happy to answer some questions.
Republicans have the votes to oppose on witnesses?
You know, I think you saw yesterday in the papers all over the country that the answer is not yet. I think the questions that you heard today, led off by Susan Collins, is seeking more information that may help us get to a place where there may not be witnesses. But at this point, it's obvious that we don't have the votes yet.
But what about a scenario where you could have enough votes for witnesses, but then it turns into where Senator Romney, Senator Collins are both at a one-on-one or two-on-two, which Democrats don't want? Could we be into a scenario then where you say, oh, we want witnesses, and then nothing ends up happening, both sides sort of get what they want?
I think you're going to have 51 senators will make the decision on whether or not we have witnesses, and those 51 senators will have to be thoroughly invested in that position. So I don't think you'll have folks who are vacillating back and forth.
Senator, most of your colleagues, with few exceptions, have been directing questions to the president's attorneys, but no one has appeared to challenge any of the facts laid down by the House managers. Is there going to be more of an attempt to poke holes in their case, or should we expect to hear just more and more questions eliciting many of the things that the President's counsel said over the past 2 days?
Okay, so I was among the group that got together on trying to see what we were going to do with questions in the first place. And I think, first of all, we just had 2 hours of 16. So you'll see that this will probably evolve and it'll focus in on maybe what you're talking about. And you've noticed, almost without exception, any question from one side has been aimed at their side. And only a time or two was it the opposite. And that is simple, just like it would be in any debate or any type of courtroom consideration. You want to control the dynamic. I think that could change as we go on. But so far, that's what you've seen, and that's why.
I think it's highly unlikely that you'll see either side asking questions of the other side. The truth of the matter is you don't want to give someone an opportunity just to drone on forever without actually answering the question. So even if you have a question for the House managers and you're a Republican, chances are very high you're going to ask the president's team.
So you're not really interested
Yes, sir.
in hearing from them?
Well, I think Ron did a very good job of talking through Alan Dershowitz's argument as it relates to quid pro quo and creating the 3 tranches. So motive does matter. The question is, how do you factor in the president's unspoken motive? That's once again, we're going into reading minds, and that's what the House managers have tried to do.
And it also begs the question of, was there corruption in Ukraine that the Bidens were involved with that gets dismissed as debunked and handled before the president was elected? So I think that all is intertwined. And his point is that how would you ever determine where one starts and the other one finishes or starts? That's a spectrum that would be difficult to separate the two.
Senator Scott, can I ask you one more question? You said that they're trying to put some of your vulnerable colleagues in a tough spot. Is it unhelpful when one of your colleagues says, essentially, Senator Romney is trying to appease the left by voting for witnesses?
I think Senator Romney is trying to find a fact pattern that helps him come to the conclusion that's important to him. My point is that I do think that my colleagues on the other side are trying to target vulnerable Republicans in order to take the majority in the Senate. That's, in my opinion, is the whole goal of the current conversation. But I think Senator Romney is doing what Senator Romney thinks is in the best interest of Utah and the country.
But is it unhelpful when your Republican colleagues add to that?
I'm coming to Tim Scott's rescue. He's finished. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I thought the House managers did a great job. There were so many untruths, incomplete facts. Folks, there were so many untruths, incomplete facts in the president's lawyers' cases and in their presentations. And the House managers had a good chance to rebut them, and rebut them very strongly. The need for witnesses just came out even stronger as you heard the back and forth between the questioners and the managers and the president's counsel. And a number of arguments were just decimated. Dershowitz's argument that you had to break the law was totally put to rest when Zoe Lofgren outlined how many of the founders said it shouldn't be just a criminal violation. And when she gave all the examples and abuse of power, Dershowitz's argument was just false. And it was totally out of touch with almost every constitutional expert, and he couldn't answer it very well. That's why I inserted the question to let them rebut it, and rebut it they did. How about the argument that, oh, all quid pro quos are okay? The House managers made it very clear. It depends what the quo is. If the quo is something legal, that's fine. But if the quo is saying interfere in the elections in America, that is an abuse of power if there ever was one. How about the idea of the motivation? They said, well, there might be several motivations, and you have to judge if one was okay. And the answer, which loomed large, you want to hear what the motivations are? Call the eyewitnesses. Call Mr. Bolton. Call Mr. Mulvaney. No one will better understand the president's motivation than they would. So we thought it was a good morning, a good afternoon for us, and we have a lot of faith that the House managers will continue to do a very good job. Well, not this gentleman.
Most of your colleagues were directing questions only to House managers in the same dynamic existed on the Republican side. Why is there not so far more of an attempt to...
Well, I think you'll see more of that. The reason we directed so much of our questions to the House managers is because they needed the chance to rebut the false arguments, the fallacious reasoning, the half-truths, and even no truths that the 3 days of the President's Council made, and this was their first chance to do it. Go ahead, Kane. No, one question. Makes no sense whatsoever. I would say the student decimated the professor. Adam Schiff said mens rea is the heart of the criminal law. What your motivation was, what made you do the crime. Did you have intent, criminal intent, which carries over with impeachment? I thought Dershowitz's arguments I thought they were weak the other night, and they were just decimated by both Schiff and Lofgren.
Senator Schumer, what did you think of Patrick Philbin's argument about executive privilege? He was answering Cornyn's question.
Again.
And he talked about how it would be not so easy to subpoena John Bolton because the foreign policy and national security are, he said, the crown jewels of executive
well,
privilege.
if John Bolton wanted to come testify and it was a subpoena signed by the Chief Justice, passed in a bipartisan way, he'd be here in a day. He could go to court, but he'd be testifying in a day. And I don't think any of his claims would stand up. So I think the issue of timing, our Republican friends, the president, Mitch McConnell, keep coming up with new excuses. How about the timing argument? When we wanted to do witnesses and documents at the beginning, they said, oh no, let's wait and hear the arguments. And we said, after we hear the arguments, you're going to say there's no time to do it. Well, hello, that's just what they did. We could get the whole thing done in a week or two. And in the sacredness and importance of gaining the facts, of figuring out this very weighty, solemn process, to say we can't wait a week when some people think the president wants it for his own purposes once again, to do it before X or to do it before Y, makes no sense in a constitutional and historical sense. Thank you, everybody. I should answer that question. How confident am I on witnesses? That's a good question. Well, you got your question. Okay. Even though you're over my shoulder, I would say this. We've always known it will be an uphill fight on witnesses and on documents because the president and Mitch McConnell put huge pressure on these folks. But for 4 weeks, we've made the relentless. I've been every day, I think every single day, I have argued why we need witnesses and documents, and we have won over the American people. And so our Republican colleagues, at least some of them, realize that if they are to reject witnesses and documents, they're going against not just a small group or not just Democrats, but against the whole grain of America. and they know that they may be held accountable to that. So I hope we can get witnesses and documents. It's an uphill fight. Is it more like than not? Probably no. But is it a decent, good chance? Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Have any Republicans said that they will vote for witnesses?
Well, today has been an excellent day for the President's Council. The questions and answers really on both sides of the aisle have exposed massive flaws inside of the case of the House impeachment managers. Right out of the gate, you saw Adam Schiff answering a question with regards to whether or not they needed additional information in order to be able to prove their case. The last day on the House floor before sending these impeachment articles over, they were reinforcing their position that their evidence was overwhelming, uncontested, indisputable, and proof beyond a doubt. It's amazing as we're listening to that answer to start the day. Now, this was a question directed to Adam Schiff, an answer given by Adam Schiff, and even in his own words, he's not able to keep that position that they had this whole time. He didn't say our evidence is overwhelming. He didn't say our evidence is uncontested and indisputable and that we've proven the case beyond a doubt. He said in order to prove his case, he needs new evidence that he doesn't even have yet. And he doesn't even know exactly what that evidence is and where he's going to find it. Now, if you want to open that door to new witnesses, that door is a big door. And the Republicans in the House had a long witness list. And only 3 people on that list ended up getting called. And you know why? It was 3 people who were the only 3 people who were also on the Democratic list. These were 3 people who testified during the closed-door depositions. Now, I was listening to a little bit of what Senator Schumer was just stating. If it's the Democrats' position that no witnesses have been heard from at all, if the witness count is at 0, how telling is it to you, the state of their case, that they're not asking for any witness at all who we've heard from already? How weak is their case that they're not asking for a witness Bill Taylor or a witness Fiona Hill or a witness Lieutenant Colonel Vindman? No. If that witness count is 0, as the Dems are claiming, they're saying that they need to hear from people and they have absolutely no idea what they're going to say. Really exposes a huge flaw in their case. Mike Johnson.
Well, the witness count is not 0, as you know. Remember the number, remember the score. It's currently 17-0. What does that mean? The Democrats got 17 witnesses that they wanted. We got 0 that the Republicans wanted. That's the number. That's the witness count. That's the evidence that's been presented in the Senate. And that's why it's so clear to everyone that the facts and the law are on the side of the president here. I think the American people following this, if you look online, people understand the case that's been made. They understand the defense and they're ready for us to move on. Remember this, and you keep hearing this theme repeated over and over, the abuse of power being a standard, the new standard apparently, to impeach a president. If we do that, it's danger, 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 as Jay Sekulow emphasized on the Senate floor yesterday. You cannot have that be the bar for impeachment. If we do, we're opening a Pandora's box for the country. If it had been that standard for the past, every president since George Washington would have been going through this tirade, this charade, just like this. The Democrats have done this in a very irresponsible way. I think the American people see that, and I think, again, the size of the crowds in New Jersey last night indicate that the American people are behind the truth here, and we're glad to get on with this, and we hope that it'll be over in the coming days. We'll take questions.
Congressman, you just said that it would be absurd to call a witness when they have not been previously called during the House investigation. Isn't that what many of your Senate colleagues want to do with Hunter Biden?
First off, Hunter Biden was on the Republican witness list. The whistleblower was on the Republican witness list. And by the way, the whistleblower, Adam Schiff said should be called to testify, and it was only until he got called out for lying on national TV about his team's contact with the whistleblower that he had a change of heart. There are a bunch of people who are on the Republican witness list, including Hunter Biden, but Adam Schiff wouldn't allow them to be called on the House side. And by the way, I didn't say it was absurd, but that's fine. I understand what you're trying to say. Any other questions?
Can I just
Please
say
go ahead.
something? I really liked Senator McSally's question from Arizona. I'm a little biased, but she asked the question along with some other Republican senators of why did the House try to follow up on any of their witnesses or getting witnesses or subpoenas through the courts during that 33 days that Nancy Pelosi held on to the articles of impeachment? And the answer was no. And so now for them to claim they need witnesses when they didn't do their job in the House is just wrong. And I also just saw that video from John Bolton, which is really interesting, saying that the phone calls were very good. And so life is interesting now, isn't it?
Any other
What would
questions?
Hunter Biden tell us about why the aid was withheld? Do you think he has any knowledge of what the president's intent was and why the aid was withheld?
Well, I don't know that calling Hunter Biden is a needed necessity at this point, only because it's the burden of proof is on my Democrat colleagues to prove that there is an impeachable offense. They haven't done that. Certainly, if you're going to open up this witness Pandora box, then Hunter Biden would be a relevant witness, because so much of the case that my Democrat colleagues made was that there was no corruption, there was no ill intent, there was nothing inappropriate there as it related to Vice President Biden and Hunter Biden. I think that the defense team has made a compelling case that that's not the case. But listen, whether it's 17-0 right now, do you think 18-0 or 19-0 is going to make a difference for my Democrat colleagues? The answer, based on Mr. Schumer's comments just a few minutes ago, is obviously no. He believes that the president is guilty. Let's go ahead and have the vote. Let's make sure that the president is acquitted, and let's get on to things that most Americans care about.
So you don't think Hunter should be called?
I don't think any additional witnesses should be called at this point. If we're going to open up the Pandora's box, then certainly he would be one of the people on our list. The whistleblower would be another. Adam Schiff would be another. But as we start to add to this list, I think it doesn't do anything to promote what most Americans believe should happen with this impeachment trial. It's time to bring it to a close. The House has made its case. They have not made it convincingly. The president is innocent. It's time that we allow our senators to take a vote.
What laws do you think Hunter Biden...
Any other questions?
Yeah. He writes that the president told him he withheld the aid in order to get the investigation.
Yeah.
John Bolton's a conservative Republican, a longtime member of your party.
Right.
Many of the Republican senators respect him. Why wouldn't they want to hear his testimony?
Well, again, all we have to do is look at two other competing facts. Now we have a video in Ambassador Bolton's own words where he said the phone calls were warm and appears warm and friendly. They appear to be appropriate. When did that video and when did that interview take place? It happened on August 28th. What does that mean is right after Ambassador Bolton meets with President Zelensky, where aid was not brought up, he goes and does an interview that says the phone calls were appropriate, warm and friendly. And when you do that, in Ambassador Bolton's own words, it contradicts a manuscript that nobody has read and certainly that wouldn't illuminate this issue anymore at all. Yes.
It doesn't touch on the phone call.
I beg your pardon? I've answered this before. To suggest what Ambassador Bolton has done or not done based on a manuscript that none of you have read would be certainly inappropriate. What we have seen today is a video that suggests that Ambassador Bolton saw nothing wrong with the call, or at least that President Zelensky saw nothing wrong with the call, because the interview would indicate that. So we have Ambassador Bolton in his own words. Adam Schiff says, let's hear from Ambassador Bolton. There's a 60-second clip that allows us to do that in the time that is appropriate.
Wouldn't it be better to get testimony under oath?
Yeah, you've already had a question.
You keep using this term Pandora's box. If they vote for witnesses, it's going to be Pandora's box. most senators have said, let's get this over with. Why does it have to be a Pandora's box? It seems there's only one witness who has, both sides have said they would like to hear from, even if it's less Republicans. It's John Bolton. Why would it become a Pandora's box if you're also trying to end it?
It will not stop there. I mean, history shows us that it doesn't stop there. The fact that you're asking about Ambassador Bolton shows that it won't stop there, because you know what? It was, as my colleagues have already said, it was indisputable was their case. That was their words, not mine, indisputable. But yet, they have been disputed. The case has been disputed. And what we're finding out now is their whole case rests on the potential witness that hasn't been called, because they know that the case that they put forth with 17 different witnesses have severe and major flaws in it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Basically, why did that have to be a Oh, I said, I said, did like anybody come down? That's all. Delvin, Johnson, Meadows. Let's talk for you. Oh.
Sure. I can try. That's all I can do. Yeah. Gotcha. So is there, if you let her run, you don't want to still finish.
It was Brunnett's spot, right?